Take your time to adjust your sitting posture. Slowly adjust from the top of your head down to your toes. Take your time to slowly bring your attention back to be with your body senses. As you are adjusting your sitting posture and relaxing your muscle, you are turning back your attention to yourself gently. And in that way, the mind will stand still with ease and naturally. The mind stands still naturally, will not bring any frustration. On the other hand, it will be very content, calm, and blissful. And with that feeling, we can remain meditating for as long as we like. Peacefulness and calmness will come, will emerge very easily. So take your time to adjust until you feel that you can release your body's weight towards the gravity. Relax every muscle from the top of your head down to your face. Relax from your temples, your eyes, your nose, and your cheeks. And down from the neck to your arms, your hands, your legs, your feet. Allow your entire body to be so relaxed. With that relaxation, your mind will slowly unwind from all matters that you may have holding back with you. As you turn your attention to the relaxation of yourself, little by little, your mind is unwinding, relieving from all matters it holds on, until you feel very relieved and free. Observe your whereabouts, your ambience, and imagine that you are sitting here alone in the middle of an open space without anybody nearby, just yourself, all alone, but not lonely. When our mind is at peace, we don't feel lack of anything. Even the emptiness feel whole and complete. It is full of content. Even though we realize that we are alone in the solitude, it doesn't feel lonely because craving settles. We are not looking for anything else to hold on. Our mind settles with peace, and that is the contentment that fills the emptiness, that fills the loneliness. So take your time to adjust and make a feeling that you are here alone, feeling as if your surrounding space can expand until it touches the horizon. Just yourself alone, away from all matters and people, where you don't have to care about any demands or requests or anyone or any matters. Just like you are on your holiday at where you feel most at peace, where you can liberate your mind from captivity. When the mind is free, the feeling is open, hollow, light, and spacious. Those are the feelings of a free mind, and that peace of mind can easily come to stillness. The comfort from the body slowly fill your mind when it is set free. That feeling relief that fill the rest of your body until you really feel settled down here at the present moment. Then you may turn your attention down to touch gently within your body. That feeling deep inside where you find inner comfort. It feels mellow, silky, tender, and gentle within. And when you place your attention on that point, a feeling peace, radiate and fill every part of you, making you even more serene. And that serenity is so enchanted, so captivated, so that you can just be there without any engagement or interaction that peace is more than enough for everything, so much that the mind doesn't struggle to seek or to look for any methods. So settle it inside at the center of you, the point where you notice that deep comfort with that softly and gently. You may visualize a bright object like the sun, the full moon, or a tiny bright star to keep you company. A bright image shall be a landmark for your mind. It will be a point of recognition so that you are aware of your consciousness. Settle down still within. So leave it there at the center of you. Or settle whatever out there. Leave them be for the moment. We give the time for our mind to immerse deeply within the peace, warm and bright, the sun inside ready. So let your mind rest with the center and the sun for a while. สัพเพพุทธาภลปตาปัจเจกานันจะยังพลังอรหันตาเตเชนรกังกันธามิสัพพโสสัพพพุทธานุภาเวนะสัพพธรรมานุภาเวนะสัพพสังฆานุภาเวนะสัทธาโสติภวันตุเต
พร้อมยัง May I pay my deepest respect to the Triple Gem and the Great Masters. May I pay respect to all the senior monks and all the venerables. And good evening, all participants. Welcome to our 14th day of this special certificate program, Pali Chanting with English translations, on this commemoration of Vesak Day and 81st year of Luang Por Dhammachayo. Today, we continue our exploration of the Dhammacakkappavattanasuttaṁ, the Buddha's first discourse that set the wheel of Dhamma in motion. Yesterday, we examined the historical context and Buddha's first sermon and began our study of the Four Noble Truths and concluded with the first of Eightfold Paths leading to the cessation of suffering. Today we will delve deeper into the remaining of these profound practices. These teachings form the core framework, or as Venerable Pasura called the master plan of Buddhist practice. As we continue chanting the sutta, we are developing both proper pronunciation and a deeper understanding of their meaning. These teachings aren't merely philosophical concepts, but practical tools for transformation that have guided countless arahants and practitioners for over 2,600 years. And we are pleased to welcome back Venerable Pasura Tantamano to continue guiding us through the Buddha's first sermon. With his background that bridges both secular and monastic life, Venerable Pasura offers insights that are both profound and accessible. With deep appreciation and gratitude, please welcome Venerable Pasura Tantamano to continue our exploration of this foundational practice. May I invite all the lay participants to offer our respect to the teaching monks. Bow, bow, bow. ขอกราบอาราธนาพระอาจารย์ครับบูชาพระรัตนตรัยครับ
Let's start by paying respect to Triple Gem all together. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธภะคะวาพุทธังภะคะวันตังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตภะคะวะตาธัมโมธัมมังนัมมัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนภะคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามิหันตุมยังพุทธสสะภะคะวะโตปุปภาคณมการังกโรมาเส Na mô tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Na mô tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Na mô tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. I extend my humble respect to the venerables who has more vasa than me. Good evening, everyone. So welcome back to another sessions, continuing from yesterday that we have finished the first part that I went through the explanation of terms of historical fact, historical understandings, and how important and significant it is for the Buddha to deliver this sutta, and how important it is as the way it was deemed as the foundation of all Buddhist teachings. So yesterday I left you with the first part of the first of the Eightfold Path. So today I will continue with that. So, all right. So yesterday I was talking about how the Buddha appeared to the group of 5 monks, Pancavakkhiya, and affirmed that I have found the middle path, and that middle path that leads to seeing or insight leads to knowledge. And because see and know, the Buddha understood what it's like with the Dhamma, with the reality, and that leads to calmness and realization into awakening and also to the liberation. And that is the Buddha left the group of 5 monks to understand that, and also explain that in order for all of that to continue further, the middle path has to go through the Eightfold Path, to be precise, which is the 8 points. And in the Tipitaka, of course, the right view we're explaining as all these 10 right views, or Dhammacakkappavattanasuttaṁ. As I mentioned yesterday, that the majority part of the right view, if you break it down, is actually to reaffirm the whole ideas of understanding what it's like to keep pursuing good deeds, keep focusing on cultivate kusala karma or positive karma. All of this, where the first four is all about reaffirming that keep up with your good deeds, all the way to understanding that because of the good deeds, it has the result and effect in the future lives, and even that coming to be reborn in a good environment, so that we can continue our journey in the cycle of rebirth, all the way to the different types of realms that exist beyond this world because of the karma that we have cultivated, and because of our convictions of this karma can enable us to become like the Buddha one day. So all of this is roughly yesterday. So then, because we already start by having right view, so now that I have a theory for life, for example, I realize that for me now, the personal theory is that if I want something good to happen with my life, I gotta have to start from cultivate my own good action. So that will lead to the intentions of planning a resolution. And that is what is called samma sankappo, sakka sankappa in a way. That leads to how can I continue to do good deeds? And of course, usually we simply talk about 3 ways to cultivate good deeds. The first one, dana, second, sila, and third one, pavana, which is generosity, precepts of moral codes, and pavana, which is purification of the mind. Of course, dana, you know very well, whether it's going to be just giving materials, giving knowledge, or dhamma knowledge, giving help, all the way to forgiveness. Sila, which of course is something that most Buddhists will observe. I will not go down to this detail, but the pavana is actually what I like to address a little bit. Because the term pavana means to develop. And when it means to develop, it is something that will take duration to gradually happen. I like to chat this part because I have also the duties to teach meditation to mostly non-Buddhists. And nowadays, what I found out is that there are growing interest of the practice of meditation. And most of the time, a lot of practitioners were trying to force the mind silence in order to keep the mind still, thinking that in the mind to be quiet is actually the correct way to meditate. In some way, it should be the result. But since the term pavana means to develop, and it's different from the word meditation when you translate in English, because meditation, if you look up in dictionary, it tends to be translated as either types of mental practice or contemplation. It seems very engaging when the term pavana is more developing the concentration of the mind. So it's slowly something that we're cultivating as time goes by. So that's why I just like to have a little reminder that whenever you come down to practice meditation, take the time to slowly develop it, and you can develop anytime and anywhere. And pavana doesn't refer to just sitting down to meditate. It's also different types of chanting, different types of practice that will slowly adding up on that concentration of the mind. And that's why being mindful all day long is also categorized in practicing pavana as well. So that's what we can do too. Of course, the right resolve can expand into 10 material towards these, which mean that not only just the first three things that we usually mention as the dana, sila, and pavana, there are actually other 7 that we'll consider as doing good deed as well. And a lot of them is actually easy. First of all, for example, number 4, humility or being humble. Being humble is actually something that we can always do to cultivate good deeds. It doesn't really require so much effort. So by being respectful and being humble, not being arrogant, that's actually, or egotistic, that's actually quite easy to practice and also be a way to bring punya or merit as well. 5, rendering service or being helpful or helping others. 6 and 7, this is actually something that we can also cultivate as a way to, whether when we see someone doing good deeds and we tell them that we are, good job, you're doing great jobs, I'm rejoicing what you have been doing, to show the support and also sharing merit. All of this actually has one thing that's quite significant in the modern world, because when you rejoice someone's merits, that will have to start from you are able to recognize when someone is doing good. By habit, it is very easy for human to project or to look at negative side of a person. Mostly if I look around, I can easily find 10 different things to complain about or to comment about, people around me. It's very hard to spot the mistake that people has done. But when I try to rejoice in a merit, automatically it enforces me to look at something positive about the person, so that I can even extend, wow, you have done something very good. I'd like to rejoice that job. And that becomes a new habit to look for something positive rather than negative. And in a way, that already leads to happiness. And that's why the right resolve in doing this is actually had the essence that going to the mind, the sense of development of the personal characteristics. You know that the Buddha, in order to become a Buddha, he has to pursue perfections of paramitta for tenfold, threefold of the 10 perfections. And whether it's going to go down to different types of or 10 of perfections, it's actually 10 perfect characteristics of a human being, of a person that is supposed to be very, very perfect. That's really a sense coming it down. So all of the goodies is not just to cultivate positive energy, but also to develop our personal characteristic. Because from punya, from merit, when we devote or dedicate ourselves in doing it, it becomes a paramita. And that will also change into our personality. And when we go to the next life, in this cycle of rebirth, it goes with us. So rejoicing merit and sharing merit will mean that I always be kind to always sharing, see somebody say, okay, I share some goodies that I have done with you, and I see something good out there, I recognize and I express my support. So that becomes a characteristic too. The other 2, listening to the right teachings of the Dhamma, and number 9, sharing or teachings of Dhamma or the truth. So this actually so that we can, tend to put our time and focus, our attention, which is very limited and scarce, into where it needs to be. rather than spend a great deal of time scrolling on the screens and look up an unnecessary news or information that doesn't really concern us at all and makes us upset. But we can use that limited time of life to seek more knowledge in order to promote the realization of the truth. So these 2 points of the meritorious deeds actually is also about spending the time wisely so that we can not wasting it. So you see, it's not just I do reading the Dhamma book and talk about the Dhamma, but it's about change internally so that we don't really get distracted easily and be reminded the time that I have limited is supposed to be used for something that my life is born for. So that is what it's like. And of course, number 10, forming the correct view. The right view is still the bottom line here, you see. The first one that we talked about yesterday was the right view as well. Now the right view happened here again. So forming the right view is always one of the pinnacle of doing good deeds, because without the right perspective, the rest won't happen. In order for me to do anything, you gotta have to start from the mind. You have to start from that understanding that what am I doing, what it is for. So that right view, what are we cultivating, it needs to be constantly reminded. Luang Por Thatta said to me once, and it's very interesting, he said, if you look at all religions around the world, they have some consistent pattern. And one of it is that every 7 days, there's a specific day in a week for every religion to conduct services or ritual or practices. For Buddhism, we choose the lunar calendar. So it's going to be, the half moon, the full moon, the new moon. So you see, it's just within the week. For other religion, it could be Friday, it could be Sunday, it could be Saturday. But they pick the specific day of a week in order to practice it. And it's actually the reason is that Luang Por said that we can forget very easily. We can be distracted very easily. So if within 7 days we have not come to refresh it, we tend to be kind of stepping away further from what we should be practicing, we should be spending time on. And other temptation or other is going to take it away. So forming a correct view is not just, I try to just sit here and think, oh, I should have this view with reinforcements of the karma and all that. But it's also go through all of these practices on the daily basis, on the weekly basis, so that I can refresh what am I doing? What is really the meaning and the values that I should pursue? So that is actually the aspect of forming correct view. It's the foundation of the rest of other aspects that we're going to be talking about. So from the right resolve, the next part of the Eightfold Path, number 3, is the right speech. The right speech, very simple, because when to apply to practice right speech is actually just like in the 5 precepts. Don't speak telling lies, using words that create the divisions among groups of people, the divisive speech. Don't use rude word or harsh speech, and don't talk either chatting or gossiping behind people's back. So those 4 things are the way to speak properly, things that we shouldn't speak about. So in order for us to develop the right speech, and when we develop the right speech, that also enables us to develop one of the very important Buddhist practice, and that is called satya. Satya or truthfulness is not just speaking of the truth, but also being committed to what I'm saying. Each word that I deliver has meaning, has a strength on its own. So when I say something, I uphold the value of it. I commit it to what I'm saying. So it will actually make every single expression that I make valuable and committed. So that is not just the aspect of, I don't tell lies, but in order to uphold what is the truth. On the bottom line, what is the Buddhist practice is all about? It's all about discover the truth. The Dharma means the truth, right? So that's by developing right speech is always all about us focusing on what is the truth. So we're developing satya, and satya is also one of the 10 perfections. Not only just one of the 10 perfections, it's one of the very last. So that is something that takes lifetimes to develop for someone to be obtaining the characteristic of be truthful, of be committed, of be serious. So that's what it is. So not only to have to avoid this type of false speeches, because I know sometimes when people ask me a lot of questions that, but in many situations, it's not easy for me to speak the truth all the time. What should I do? The Buddha actually kind enough to give us the criteria how to deliver our words. So these are the 5 principles that in order to say something, at least you gotta have to take consideration of these 5 factors. That if you have them all, great. If you don't, hold your tongue. First of all, truth. Everything that I gotta say it has to be the truth. It cannot be something twisted. Even this concept of white line that people usually say that when times is hard, I can avoid it with using white lie. Think of it this way, that every single time, even though that lie doesn't really hurt anybody, but that means instead of I'm facing reality, I choose to dodge it, like dodging the bullet. So try to step away instead of dealing with it head on. So I will run away or step away from engaging with the truth and resolve it. So in that way, it becomes my habit to always step aside. So that's why it's always the truth. Then timely. Timely is actually the right time. Not only that you speak the truth, you can be very straightforward and blunt, but you have to look at the person you're talking to. Are they ready to listen to it? Because if not, you probably get punched in your face instead of listen to your words. And then number 3, it has to be kind words. Not only that it has to be the truth, not only that it has to be the right time, but you gotta have to choose the right words. Because if the word that you express, doesn't really sound good to hear, doesn't really sound convincing, the choice of word really make different. And that is why Buddha also put it there that you gotta have to put the right words into it. And of course, number 4, beneficial. It means that it has to bring some benefits. What I'm saying is not just to bluntly telling people in front of the face that they are terrible or something, but okay, so that they be inspired enough to make change and make development, with some purpose. And to the last one, it must come from goodwill, from kindness. I'm being kind, so I'm telling you this. So these are the 5 points, truth, right place at the right time, with the right choice of words, with purpose and with kindness. If not, hold it there. Wait for the right time, wait for the right moment. So that is some way that Buddha even take into consideration to explain that if you have to speak, how to. So the right action which comes after the speech, right actions in this state, we talk about the first 3 of the 5 precepts, from abstention of killing, abstention from taking what is not belong to us or stealing, abstention from sexual misconduct. So this one is pretty simple. It's about realizing that everybody loves their life, their property, their family, and if I don't like these to be taken away, I should uphold the values and integrity, not taking from others as well. So from the right action to the right livelihood. Right livelihood, of course, human life cannot just depend on its own without consumption. And in order to consume, we have to work in order to get resources for consumption and for survival. The Buddha also explained that what are the types of livelihood in so-called miccha vanicca, which means types of occupation or trade that we shouldn't employ. And he listed that into 5 things, dealing in human beings. This actually, sounds weird in the direct translation, but if I change it in the word to human trafficking, slave. So those things are starting to get clearer into the modern context. Using, because we're exploiting other human beings for our own benefit. That is, Buddha said, not in the kind of right livelihood. Number 2, dealing with weapons, selling arms or weapons that we know that this is actually going to end up used for taking lives of others. Number 3, dealing with flesh in terms of, the animal that we sell for meat. So those are dealing in flesh. Alcohol, pretty clear on its own, and poison. Alcohol is actually clouded. We know that whenever who is consuming it, it's going to cloud them from having the right consciousness. And without consciousness, people will end up doing something bad and wrong, even they don't even realize, because they have less holding on to their own control. So that is why we are in supportive of that, why we are dealing in alcohol. And the last one, of course, dealing with poison, which is actually aimed to be just like weapon as well. Buddha put it in that way because this is what Buddha see as a kind of social doctrine. When the Buddha, we usually talk about the Buddha teachings a lot in terms of how it developed into a spiritual aspect, but the Buddha has also a lot of social doctrines, because in this sense, he didn't mention this for people who focus on just enlightenment, but just day to day. If I'm going to do trade, I'm going to have to conduct my life. What should I do? What should I avoid? Yeah, Buddha said, you can choose to employ different types of things for your survival. Don't do this. This is for your own good. So you don't end up engaging in negative karma and be a part that create this negativity of society. For the first all the way to the right livelihood is pretty simple, because basically we talk about the cultivation of good deed. But without the right effort, it stops. Everything that's going to moving forward, it must be continual with the putting in the effort to pursue it. And the right effort, the Buddha actually also put in that in one of the sutra, what it means to put an effort into. So the first two is about unwholesomeness or negative part of ourselves. Eradicate the unwholesomeness that we have. That should be our effort. All the negative habits, if I'm stinky, if I short temper, if I get easily egotistic, those characteristics that I inhabit, I should eradicate them. Number two, what I know that is not really good characteristic, that are good traits, I should prevent them from being part of me. So now I know I'm not so egotistic, but that doesn't mean that I won't be in one day. And that is why the second effort that we should be employing is to employ the effort not to develop, to prevent it from developing myself. So the first two talks about the eradications and the preventions of unwholesomeness or the negative traits or characteristic to be part of us. So the first two right effort is to deal with the negativity. The other two of the right effort is about wholesomeness or something positive. One, develop what I don't have. I know I am not really truthful, I'm not really committed, I procrastinate a lot, I'm still not very disciplined. Now that I realize all that, I should develop it by slowly develop into a habit. And that's by every single lifetime. Even if we talk about afflictions, we talk about paramita, it's about developing that good traits, developing that positivity, positive characters within ourselves. So that development is actually what we should put in an effort. And the last one is to maintain. What I have done great, maintaining that. Doesn't mean that I have done great jobs in the past, I won't mess up later in the future, because we can easily be lazy, we can easily lose encouragement and inspiration to practice. There are millions of reasons that you can just come up with excuses not to do it. And that's maintenance. What we already have developed with a lot of effort should be put there. So the right effort, just breaking down into eradication, prevention, develop, and maintain. Always remember the simple 4 words. Eradicate, prevent, develop, maintain. And that is to put the effort in what is necessary for life. So that is the right effort is about. From the right effort, it's down to right mindfulness. When I put an effort into something, automatically it brings about mindfulness. I'm becoming more aware of what I'm doing. But the right effort in this sense in the text also explained furthermore in terms of the mindfulness that related to meditation practice. Because now in this part, don't forget that the Eightfold Path, when it was mentioned for the first time, it was mentioned to those group of 5 monks who intensively practice it. So the Buddha emphasized on what is so-called the right mindfulness. And this is actually quite interesting. Of course, generally in the text, we talk about mindfulness as thing that you can find in Satipatthana Sutta, from the mindfulness of the body, sensation, the mind, or the mental content or properties of the Dhamma. So those are the main 4 things of the mindfulness that usually address a lot in the text. Whether being mindful of the body in the body, sensation in sensations, and etc. etc. For the mind, I know that we talk about Vedana. Vedana is perception or senses. Vedana is actually the first part of the mind when it's coming to contact from forms. What I see, hear, smell, taste, and feel, the moment I contact my senses, my physical senses, is sent to the mind, become perception. So I see it. When I see, I notice that, oh, it's feel, I like it, I don't like it, it's hot, it's cold, it's pleasant, it's unpleasant. So we are being bombarded with our senses the whole lifetime. A lot of time, these are our distraction. These are our temptation. Because I could be sitting here looking at this camera right now. It doesn't mean that my periphery will detect this and that passing by, and my attention will slip away. And if attractive, it's say lock in. So that is why being mindful of our senses, Vedana, is actually what we should be focusing on. But this attachment, if I develop, it's going to be hard to let go. It doesn't bring any benefit, which is going back to what we talked about yesterday, the indulgence in sensual pleasure, right? And citta, the image that you see right now on the screen is citta. Citta is the mind, from the whole perceptions all the way to the understanding, which is the mind, seeing the mind in the mind. So that roughly is the concept of mindfulness. The point being is that when it talks about mindfulness, it leads to concentration. Sati and samadhi come together. And not only in this, as a Dhammacakkappavattanasuttaṁ, sati and samadhi always sort of come together in many, many parts that explain about meditations, about mental power. So those things actually come together, because for the mind to be still, to be concentrated, it needs to be mindful or to be known where it is first. Think of it this way. Mindfulness is the foundation. When you will construct a building, you need your foundation to be strong, to be solid, so that the skyscraper of the building can be placed on top of it. If you want the building to be high, the foundation must be solid. When you practice meditation, what's actually happening? You actually prolong your state of being mindful, or prolong mindfulness, until that mindfulness slowly condenses and become concentration, because the word samadhi in terms of concentration is the mind stands still at a point, at a particular point, and that becomes concentration. Normally, we love to force that concentration instead of develop sati or mindfulness. And that's why sometimes when you practice meditation, you feel agitated, you feel frustrated, you don't really feel like at ease, feeling calm. Instead, you feel frustrated, which not supposed to happen if you're meditating. How can you be stressful? You meditate. You should be doing, go out there and work, right? It should give you calmness. The reason we are not calm because we force a concentration. And of course, concentration or samadhi, there is actually expression in the text that at least there are 3 stages based on what it says in Tipitaka. The first one is Khanika Samadhi, which is a brief moment of concentration. Second is explained in the text is Samadhi Citta, which is actually close to attaining the state of jhana, and all that is a bit complicated. I will not touch that because it's a lot. And the last one, Apana Samadhi, which is absolute stillness. What I do like is actually when the great master explained, Dhammacak explained that when we started to develop Khanika Samadhi, it's already start to have some vision for us to observe, to notice. We already notice that feeling of mindfulness to be in one point, but it's still weak, but at least it's enough for us to have something to notice. And then from that, from that's like a kind of smoky, creamy brightness or warm feeling, it will slowly become more condensed. And then it leads to Upachara Samadhi. And from Juna to Upachara Samadhi, it will be even more condensed until the mind completely stands still. Appana Samadhi is when the mind stands still and the part of brightness emerged. That's when the Dhammacak explained in terms of the practical aspect. And that's what I do like, rather than to explain more in terms of the abstract term like this. And the Buddha, after explaining this Eightfold Party, emphasized one more time, but this is what I have realized of myself, that developed the insight, the knowledge, to calmness, to direct concentration, and to liberation. On one side note, before I move on to the other aspect, when I show you the right mindfulness and the right concentrations, the right view, of course there is a word that's the wrong view. This is actually one of the things that intrigued me some years after becoming a monk teaching meditation. Actually, I like to speak on this a lot because we know that we practice a lot of meditation. There was Samma Sati, Samma translated as right. So the Buddha explained as Samma Sati, the right mindfulness, the right concentration. Recently, it's come across to me that if the Buddha explained what is the right concentration, what is the right mindfulness, then there must be wrong concentration. There must be wrong mindfulness. What are them? Buddha did not explain what is wrong. He explained what is right. And when it's not right, then it's wrong is the opposite completely. I know you sound confusing right now. I'm not trying to confuse you. But the point is that we know the word sati. Sati that we usually explain, we talk about, that we want to develop is the right mindfulness, the Samma Sati, not just any sati. We can force mindfulness. Yes, we can. How? Remember when you were at school, you tried to strain yourself, staying focused, attentive in your class even you didn't want to be, but you could for a number of times, right? Each time you're doing so, you're very, very mindful. You're very concentrated and focused. Could you do it? Of course. But at what cost? You feel tense, you feel restless. That is the example of the wrong mindfulness and the wrong concentration. And we know how to apply like that all the time. And that's why a lot of time when we practice meditation, we also enhance that intention or the feeling like on the screen. So now that you understand, the Buddha wants us to develop the right mindfulness and the right concentration. So it go back to each time you sit down to meditate. How do you actually let it to the right mindfulness? Meaning, be still, naturally, gently, relaxingly. So that's when Dhammacak explained it. I realized that what is the difference between the right mindfulness and wrong mindfulness is that element of comfort. If without comfort, you can still have focus, you have still mindfulness, but it doesn't lead to happiness and joy. Comfort is what reminds you that you're still on the right mindfulness and the right concentration. And for that, I'm truly grateful for Dhammacak for explaining things that help us to develop our practice easier. So after the Buddha said that, now he moved on to the next part. Now this monk is the Four Noble Truth, which is the cause of the whole things that lock us and keep us here. So the Noble Truth of sufferings is the first one. Then he explained that the first cause of the sufferings, there are many types of them. Generally, you can categorize them into two kinds. The first kind is the sufferings that happen all the time. Birth, aging, and death. You see that birth, aging, and death are actually something that we have them all the time. So this is actually the idea that as we live in the cycle of rebirth, we live in the prison. And we cannot escape from the prison. The Buddha was just like us. He was an inmate like us. but he could find a way to break out of the prison. He called some people, follow him. The enlightened left the prison already. So we lock up here. So birth, aging, and sickness is ongoing sufferings. So in order to end suffering, it has to end birth. And that is why it was mentioned as the noble truth of suffering start from birth, aging, and death. But that is just the beginning part. The next part of the sufferings is also all of this. These are what the nature, the characteristic of being suffered from soka, pariteva, tukha, so tomanas, supaya, sapituka. This part of the chanting, when I did it, I really appreciated the meaning of it because, wow, there are different types of sufferings that we really didn't really think about. Soka means sorrow, is when we are troubled, being restless, that we cannot really, for example, the feeling of grieving, feeling lost something that dear to us, that loved, and we cannot we cannot keep it with us anymore. That sadness that comes. Pariteva means lamentation. Lamentation is the feeling of holding on to something, that we're still holding on and create uneasiness. Tukha is pain. It's just pain. It can be depressed. It can be pain of illnesses. It can be different types of pain that come from losing, our status. Tomanat is distress. Tomanat is so-called distress or resentment. When you feel like looking at others, though they are better, they have a successful job, they get a new house, and feel the sense of resentment or disappointment, something that devoids us of comfort and happiness. That is what it's like. Upasayat, which is the feeling that we're crying in pain, in despair, with the losing of wealth, of materials, of people, something significant, then it feels that, that kind of bursts out. And then the next one is appiyehi sampayoko. These last two is actually kind of summarized of it that I really enjoy, because this talk about two phenomena that always happen in life. Sufferings in this part, beside birth, aging, and death, comes from the mind, is subjective. This part, not getting what we want or being parted from what we love, is something that we always have. I want it, I don't get it. Oh, this is fantastic, I want to have it all the time, but of course, it will change. And that is why the Buddha talks about the three marks of existence: impermanence, sufferings, or always changing, and anatta, not self, or unable to govern, unable to be in control. So this is the nature characteristics of things. And what we like to do is to go against the nature. I want something to be with me all the time and never changing. And that's why we always been frustrated, we always been suffer, because we are not accepting or embracing reality. We're trying to drag ourselves against the current, and that's make it hard. So, not getting what we want, separation from what we love, common. At least, before this is a step to enlightenment and all, on this sense of being in the lay terms. When we realize these are the two things that we can't control and it will happen inevitably, what do we do about it? One, the time that we have with it, cherish it, spend it wisely. Two, when it's lost, understand that there is nothing we can do. Once we realize that fact, let's move on, let's put our attention, effort into something else that is more constructive, rather than going back to these things that you saw on top: sorrow, lamentation, pain, distress, and despair, because it comes automatically with the feeling that focus on the loss rather than what we can gain. So at least it will help us to be more aspiring in keeping up with our life. And of course, all of this coming from clinging to five aggregates. Five aggregates is what composing our body from Vedana, Sanya, Sankhara, Viññāṇa, Rupa, Vedana, Sankhara, Sankhara, Viññāṇa, and all that. But it's just the formations of self, or formations of everything. And we love to hold on to them. The longer that we attach, the more it bounds the disappointment. So that leads to the second truth, origination of sufferings. All of this, when we call the word sufferings, tu is tukkha. Tu can mean negative, bad, or hard. Ka is actually can be the word that's shorter from kanti, which is hard to cope with. So together the word sufferings can mean hard to cope with, hard to be with, hard to be patient with. So it's also subjective in a way, because you can see that people have the same phenomena or incident happen to them, but everyone deal with it differently. So let's say you see your friends heartbroken, losing jobs. Some of them, okay, let's work it out. Some of them cry for days. Why? Because this one. Because the suffering is subjective, because the desire that they have differently. And that causes different types of pain. It could be the same incident. Losing job, heartbroken, disappointment, but different people deal with them differently. Why do they deal with them differently? It depends on how much desire of holding on to these things they got. Less, they deal with it easily. More holding on, a lot harder to deal with. And that's why the Buddha put it that the word tanha, yayang tanha puno pavika, tanha is actually means desire. So this desire is constantly creating rakha. Rakha is passion. So there's feeling this craving for sensual touch, sensual pleasures become rakha, or passionate for sensual pleasure. So this is actually the whole origination of suffering is from the desire, and is always enforcing our mind, disturbing our mind to look for more. And in the Dhammacak, the Buddha also break it out into three things. Craving for sensual pleasure, or kama tanha. You see, kama tanha. Kama in this word also means sensual pleasure. So tanha, craving or desire for some sensual pleasure. What are these? Nice food, nice clothes, beautiful sound. I want to go somewhere and see the view of the mountaintop. All this craving for something that pleases to our senses, what we see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. And all of this actually cause us to crave for more, because we never had them enough. When we lose, we crave for more. We feel sad not having them. You see, it's connected with the first one. All this craving and constantly drive us to want more. And that's why in the monk's practice, we have the practice of minimize all necessity. So for example, when we put the clothes on, we have to do the reflection that the clothes is to protect our body from heat, from cold, from insect bites, from skin irritation, and just to cover the part that should not be shown. So to do that, we remind ourselves not to over-consuming it, so that we understand each time I'm going to use any of this, I understand the purpose of them. So I don't end up overdoing it. I don't let the craving or desire dictate my decision in life. That is, why we do this practice. For you, I don't mean that you have to, shave your hair and start to putting robes on like me, but at least understanding that each time, look into yourself and ask yourself what is the difference between need and want. Each of you in different status have different need, but if we let want dictate our life, it is the desire, and that desire is endless. The more we engaging with the desire, the more not getting what we want, losing what we love, we keep coming, and it leads to pain, distress, resentment, etc., or the sufferings. So that is the first part. Bhava-tanha and vibhava-tanha, craving for becoming and craving for not becoming, this is actually a bit more subtle, because this is not just the craving as something that we talk about in the kind of lay terms in kind of mundane world. So don't forget that when the Dhammacak was addressed, the first time, the Buddha addressed to the 5 groups of monks who were there. They were sons of Brahmins. Brahmins are ascetic type. They are ascetic. So they practice, what we know today as Hinduism, but the old day was Brahmanism, right? So they hold the things as so-called atta. The first 2 teachers of the Buddha already practiced these types of, to reach Atman. We probably heard of Atman. Atman is Sanskrit for atta. So the practice is to reach the state of Atman, the self, so that they can find liberation of that. That's the belief was. So in that context, when the group of 5 monks who grew up in the Brahmin family, they would have learned in order to reach a state of liberation, a moksha, or moksha, they have to cultivate a practice, through self-modifications, through meditation, to reach that state of self. And that is 2 types, from the rupa bhava, arupa tanha, arupa bhava, which is the state of the form absorptions, just like the Buddha's 2 teachers. Is actually there, and they believe it's already at the end. So they're holding on to the state of attainment. They actually had a very good meditation to read absorptions, but they couldn't enlighten because they still hold on to it, hold on to that attainment of form absorption. So the rupa bhava. And that's why when the first teaching of the Buddha passed away, he was born in that rupa bhava, or rupa bhava in Thai. And the second teacher is the formless absorption that he attained, sent him to be in arupa bhava. This is actually cosmology. The world that we're living in is kama bhava. So these 2 is actually after that level of attainment of the meditation, they're reborn in terms of in the Brahman, form Brahman and formless Brahman, in this rupa bhava and arupa bhava. And our kama bhava is here. So they see the human world is somewhere here. This is celestial realm and this is hell. So we just right around here. But you see, these 2 are much bigger. Remember I said to you before about the wrong concentration, the wrong mindfulness, how crazy it is that we can easily do the wrong things. One day I asked Luang Por Tata, when I started to understand, I said, Luang Por, does that mean all those, hermits that were practicing these types of absorption with forcing attention outside, they can hold it for a long time? I said, yes. Because, the Brahman, in Brahman realms, they live very long. They lived hundreds and thousands of kappa, which is the beginning and end of each world. And that by itself is a very long time. So they live so long, they could see the beginning and end of so like many thousand worlds. Sometimes they even forget how they got there. So that's how strong they're holding on to it. And that's why it's very hard to let go. So the passage the Buddha explained here, the craving for sensual, for becoming and not becoming, or craving for bhava or vibhava, is for those group of 5 monks to let go. By telling them that, look, what you have been believing in, what we try to reach and hold on to, will not bring you what you're looking for. So you have to eliminate that desire. Even it's actually a good thing to have the desire for liberation. Don't get me wrong. Imagine that these group of 5 monks, they went and followed Siddhartha into the forest. What did they want? Enlightenment and rebirth is the kind of devotion that they were there to put in. But because of holding on to this, they couldn't reach it at all. And that's very, very interesting to see how just, not having the right explanation, the right teacher, we can end up holding on to it. There is actually a part in the Buddhist that called Sangyoshana, which is the fetter that binds us, that bind the minds in the cycle of rebirth. And basically the process of enlightenment is to eliminate this Sangyoshana. And they are divided into the lower and the higher. The lower first 5, and the higher is in the last 5. And interesting is that this actually Silapata Pramats, Sila Pattaprama is actually holding on to the practice that was kind of following each other, believe that it was right kind of practice and holding on to it. And the stream enterer, which is the first state of enlightenment, is actually to let go, to be able to eliminate these first three. You see, from holding on to the wrong practice, the wrong views of self, and uncertainty, or this doubt vicikiccha is actually doubt in the what is really the true essence of the practice, a true goal, true purpose of the practice. To eliminate these trees lead to entering the stream enterer of the first state of enlightenment. But the rest is to eliminate the rest of them, all the way to avijja. This is actually why the group of 5 monks, interestingly enough, when the Buddha gave the Dhammacakkappavattanasuttaṁ, he said it, and we know that at the end of the teachings, one of the 5 enlightened, but he didn't attain fully enlightened. He wasn't an arahant. He only attained the Sodapatti, which is the stream enterer, which means he could only eliminate just the first 3, not the rest of them. And that is actually not only just that. The rest, the other 4, still couldn't attain anything after listening to the Buddha, up to the point that the Buddha had to come back again the next day, repeat it. The next day, repeat it. And each day respectively, one of them attained stream enterer, which means the last one had to listen to it 5 times. Same thing, 5 times, to follow through the Buddha and be able to let go what they're holding on to so strongly. Because imagine all of this practice that they were ingrained in holding on to the wrong belief for a long time, until it's so deeply ingrained in the mind and very hard to let go. The Buddha even had to explain it 5 times to the last one. And still, after 5 times, all 5 of them still only attain stream enterer, not fully enlightened, which the Buddha had to come back again and explain another sutra called Anatta Lakhana Sutra, Anatta Lakhana, the characteristic of not self or anatta. What is so-called anatta and what is so-called atta? Well, because what they've always been believing as self they were trying to attain is not. So if they can't let go of that, they couldn't fully enlightened. So the Buddha had to come and explain that so that all 5 of them attained fully enlightened afterward. That's how hard it is. But those group of 5 monks who were practicing self-modifications, who follow the wrong path of the practice and develop deeply with a kind of wrong understanding. So that is actually quite interesting, because I want to come to this point. This is what the Buddha explained as Nirodha, which is the cessation of sufferings. Come from the Jako Patinisako Mutti Analayo. All of this is letting go, relinquish, release, renounce. All of it that we hold on is to relieve them and not carrying, not holding it back, not even craving for it anymore. Letting go all these desire, letting go, to stop all of that. What I really intrigued is that in English it's kind of easy because it's hearing the word cessation of sufferings. I choose the word here to stop sufferings because I like this word. But when I was young and in school, they teach Buddhism in school, and they talk about the Four Noble Truths. As the essence of Buddhist teachings, there's a state of sufferings, there's a cause of sufferings, there is a cessation of sufferings, and the path to end sufferings. And every single time when I was young and I learned about this, I have one curiosity that the order is messed up. Okay, I understand and realize there is sufferings, the first one, cool. The cause of sufferings come from desire, makes sense. There is a cessation of suffering, what that is. And that's a part of the path to end sufferings. And at that time when I was young, I couldn't comprehend it. So I think to myself, the path, the way to end suffering should come before the cessation of sufferings, right? Just between the fourth and the third. Until Long Paul explained that the great master, when he translated the word nirotha or niroto, that usually in English is translated as cessations, the end. He translated as stop, and that's changed the whole understanding, because in the sense of stop, which in his summarize of the whole teachings of the great master, to stop is the key to success. So when the mind stop at the right point, at the seventh base, it opened the path. So that's why Nirotha came before the path. Only when the mind stopped, the path will reveal. So my point is that from this Nirotha that Buddha explained as a cessation of sufferings, then he come back again to explain that because that there is a path that leads to the end of suffering, and it is called the Eightfold Path. Majjhima Patipata. Eightfold Path is Majjhima Patipata, or the middle way. And then the Great Master explained it like this, that to stop is the key to success. It's in line with what the Buddha explained, that when the mind stops at the seventh base, he explained as it's opened the pathway from the Dhamma sphere, and the pathway that goes down the layers of the layers. He even called that Ekantaya, the one and only road, or the one and only path that lead to enlightenment. So this aspect, this part of the Eightfold Path that mentioned in the Dhammacak is not just like the first one, because now in this part is about in the meditative understanding rather than in terms of the physical practice understanding. Now, imagine that when the Buddha explained it to this, he also explained to them that they are slowly developing seeing, insight. Oh, there's some knowledge, there's some calmness. And then slowly, okay, you see the sufferings? Yes, you see the cause? Stop at this point, the path open. That, for me, is something that only, after listening to the Great Master and Long Paul to explain on top of it, will help me to understand that, wow, the whole meaning that we learned it, with the text scripturally and translate word for word, when it comes to practical aspect, we miss out a lot. And that's why when the Long Po, the Great Master, explained the word Nirotha as stop the mind at the right point. To stop is the key to success. It opened the Ekantaya, the one and only path. And from that, all the way to reaching the Dhammakaya, or the body of enlightenment. And that's what they follow, all the way to the body of enlightenment, the inner bodies. Through what? Through the Eightfold Path. Actually, this is actually a passage in the text, the Buddha. The Buddha said, good friends, companions, associates are the whole of spiritual life. A bhikkhu with good friends, associates, expect to develop, cultivate the Noble Eightfold Path. Good friends, good teachers, good guidance is really important. So we are very fortunate to have the good teachers like Long Po Dhammacak, like the Great Master, Long Po, and the Master Nan. Because this, if they haven't really spent the life to really find out, we wouldn't be able to understand them. So Eightfold Path, in the practical aspect, it can also be divided into groups, 3 groups. For the right speech, action, and livelihood, if you want to develop it, it's in the category of precepts. For effort, mindfulness, concentration is in the category of concentration or samadhi. And right view, right resolve is in the category of panya or wisdom. But to practice it, how do I develop right speech, action, and livelihood? Through discipline. How do I develop concentration? Through being patient. And how do I get better view, better resolve? By being respectful. Because the word respect means to see good things in other people, places, situations, and objects that we can absorb them. That's the true meaning of it. And with the practice of the Eightfold Path, cycle after cycle after cycle, it helps us to finally developing further and further, deeper down. And that's really just the tips of the iceberg of the Eightfold Path, because the Eightfold Path is basically the laid out of the rest of the Buddhist teaching. So this is what I want just to pause for today, just to get some understanding and some appreciation how someone like the great master has left us with that understanding just by translating the word Nirodha into stop and explain the practical aspect of it. It changed the way we understand the Eightfold Path and be able to use them in physical life and in meditative terms. So that's why it is very important to have good teachers, and we are very lucky. And in order for us to pay our gratitude for that, of course, just like yesterday, we're gonna come back together to do the recitations of the Dhammacakkappavattanasuttaṁ as the way to really paying respect and sharing our good deeds to Luang Por Dhammacak as an act of gratitude. So let's do the chanting together.
Eva me sutaṁ
Ekang samayang bhagava paranasiyang viharati isipatane mikataye tatrako bhagava pancavakiye bhikkhu amante sitave me bhikkhave anta papachite nanase vita payo jayang kame sukama sukhallikanu yoko hino kammo poto chaniko anariyo anatasanhito yo jayang atakilamatanu yoko tukho anariyo anatasanhito ete bhikkhave upo ante anupakamma chimma patipatha tathakatena apisamputtha jakkukaraniya nakarani upasamaya apinyaya sampuddhaya nippanaya samvattati katama jasa bhikkhave machchima patipatha tathakatena apisampuddha jakkukaraniya nakarani upasamaya apinyaya sampuddhaya nippanaya samvattati ayameva ariyo atthangkiko makho sayati thang sammatiti samma sankappo samma vaca samma kammanto samma achivo samma vayamo samma sati samma samadhi ayang kho sa bhikkhave machchima patipatha tathakatena apisampuddha jakkukaraniya nakarani upasamaya apinyaya sampuddhaya nippanaya samvattati ithang kho pana bhikkhave tukkhang ariya saccang chati pitukha chara pitukha maranam pitukham soka pariteva tukha tomana supaya sa pitukha อาปิเยหิสัมปโยโคทุกโขปิเยหิวิปโยโคทุกโขยัมปิชังนาลปฏิตัมปิทุกขังสังขิตเตนะปัญจุปาทานาขันธาทุกขาอิทังโขปนะภิกขเวทุกขสมุทัยโยอริยสัจจังยายังตัณหาโปโนภวิกานันทิราคสหคตาตาตระตาตราภินันทินิสัยยติทังกามตัณหาภวตัณหาวิภวตัณหาอิทังโขปนะภิกขเวทุกขนิโรโธอริยสัจจังโยตัสสะเยวตัณหายาเสสวิราคนิโรโธจาโคปฏินิสสะโคโมติอนาลโยอิทังโขปนะภิกขเวทุกขนิโรธคามินีปฏิปทาอริยสัจจังอายเมวะอริโยอัตถังคิโกมาโคสัยยทิทังสัมมาทิฏฐิสัมมาสังกัปโปสัมมาวาจาสัมมากัมมันโตสัมมาอาชีโวสัมมาวายาโมสัมมาสติสัมมาสมาธิอิทังทุกขังอริยสัจจันติเมภิกขเวปุเพอนันโนสุเตสุธัมเมสุจักขุงอุทปปาทิญาณังอุทปปาทิปัญญาอุทปปาทิวิชชาอุทปปาทิอาโลโกอุทปปาทิตังโขปนิทังทุกขังอริยสัจจังปริญญายันติเมภิกขเวปุเพอนันโนสุเตสุธัมเมสุจักขุงอุทปปาทิญาณังอุทปปาทิปัญญาอุทปปาทิวิชชาอุทปปาทิอาโลโกอุทปปาทิตังโขปนิทังทุกขังอริยสัจจังปริญญาตันติเมภิกขเวปุเพอนันโนสุเตสุธัมเมสุจักขุงอุทปปาทิญาณังอุทปปาทิปัญญาอุทปปาทิวิชชาอุทปปาทิอาโลโกอุทปปาทิอิทังทุกขสมุทัยโยอริยสัจจันติเมภิกขเวปุเพอนันโนสุเตสุธัมเมสุจักขุงอุทปปาทิญาณังอุทปปาทิปัญญาอุทปปาทิวิชชาอุทปปาทิอาโลโกอุทปปาทิตังโขปนิทังทุกขสมุทัยโยอริยสัจจังปหาตัพพันติเมภิกขเวปุเพอนันโนสุเตสุธัมเมสุจักขุงอุทปปาทิญาณังอุทปปาทิปัญญาอุทปปาทิวิชชาอุทปปาทิอาโลโกอุทปปาทิตังโขปนิทังทุกขสมุทัยโยอริยสัจจังปหินันติเมภิกขเวปุเพอนันโนสุเตสุธัมเมสุจักขุงอุทปปาทิญาณังอุทปปาทิปัญญาอุทปปาทิวิชชาอุทปปาทิอาโลโกอุทปปาทิอิทังทุกขนิโรโธอริยสัจจันติเมภิกขเวปุเพอนันโนสุเตสุธัมเมสุจักขุงอุทปปาทิญาณังอุทปปาทิปัญญาอุทปปาทิวิชชาอุทปปาทิอาโล โกอุทปปาทิตังโคปนิทังทุกขนิโรโธอริยสัจจังสัจจิกาตาพันติเมภิกขเวปุเพอนันโนสุเตสุธรรมเมสุจักขุงอุทปปาทิญาณังอุทปปาทิปัญญาอุทปปาทิวิชชาอุทปปาทิอาโลโกอุทปปาทิตังโคปนิทังทุกขนิโรโธอริยสัจจังสัจจิกตันติเมภิกขเวปุเพอนันโนสุเตสุธรรมเมสุจักขุงอุทปปาทิญาณังอุทปปาทิปัญญาอุทปปาทิวิชชาอุทปปาทิอาโลโกอุทปปาทิอิทังทุกขนิโรธคามินีปฏิปทาอริยสัจจันติเมภิกขเวปุเพอนันโนสุเตสุธรรมเมสุจักขุงอุทปปาทิญาณังอุทปปาทิปัญญาอุทปปาทิวิชชาอุทปปาทิอาโลโกอุทปปาทิตังโคปนิทังทุกขนิโรธคามินีปฏิปทาอริยสัจจังภาเวตาพันติเมภิกขเวปุเพอนันโนสุเตสุธรรมเมสุจักขุงอุทปปาทิญาณังอุทปปาทิปัญญาอุทปปาทิวิชชาอุทปปาทิอาโลโกอุทปปาทิตังโคปนิทังทุกขนิโรธคามินีปฏิปทาอริยสัจจังภาวิตันติเมภิกขเวปุเพอนันโนสุเตสุธรรมเมสุจักขุงอุทปปาทิญาณังอุทปปาทิปัญญาอุทปปาทิวิชชาอุทปปาทิอาโลโกอุทปปาทิยาวกีวันจะเมภิกขเวอิเมสุจตุสุอริยสัจเจสุเอวันติปริวัตตังทวาทสาการังยถาภูตังญาณทัสสนังนสุวิสุทธังอโหสิเนวตาวาหังภิกขเวสเทวเกโลเกสมาระเกสพรหมเกสสมณพรหมนิยาปชายสเทวมนุสายอนุตตรังสัมมาสัมโพธิงอภิสัมพุทโธปัจจัญญาสิงยโตจะโคเมภิกขเวอิเมสุจตุสุอริยสัจเจสุเอวันติปริวัตตังทวาทสาการังยถาภูตังญาณทัสสนังสุวิสุทธังอโหสิอัฏฐาหังภิกขเวสเทวเกโลเกสมาระเกสพรหมเกสสมณพรหมนิยาปชายสเทวมนุสายอนุตตรังสัมมาสัมโพธิงอภิสัมพุทโธปัจจัญญาสิงญาณัญจปนเมทัสสนังอุทปปาทิอกุปปาเมวิมุตติอายมันติมาชาตินาติธานิปุนาภโวติอิธรรมโวจะภควาอัตตมนาปัญจวัคคียาภิกขุภควโตภาสิตังอภินันทุงอิมาสมิงจะปนวัยยาการณาสมิงพันยมาเนอายาสมโตโกนทัญญาสวิรชังวิตมลังธรรมจากขุงอุทปปาทิยังกินจิสมุทัยธรรมังสัพพันตังนิโรธธรรมันติปวัตติเตจะภควตาธรรมจากเกภูมิมาเทวาสัทธมโนสาเวสุงเอตัมภควตาภาราณสิย ยังอิสิปตเนมิคทาเยอนุตตรังธรรมจักกังปวัตติตังอาปฏิวัตติยังสมเนนวาพรหมเนนวาเทเวนวามาเรนวาพรหมุนาวาเกณจิวาโลกัสมินติ
ภูมานัง
เอวานังสัทธังสุตวาจาตุมหาราชิกาเทวาสัตตมนุสาเวสุงจาตุมหาราชิกานังเทวานังสัทธังสุตวาตาวติงสาเทวาสัตตมนุสาเวสุงตาวติงสานังเทวานังสัทธังสุตวายามาเทวาสัตตมนุสาเวสุงยามานังเทวานังสัทธังสุตวาตุสิตาเทวาสัตตมนุสาเวสุงตุสิตานังเทวานังสัทธังสุตวานิมมานรติเทวาสัตตมนุสาเวสุงนิมมานรตินังเทวานังสัทธังสุตวาปรนิมมิตวสวัตติเทวาสัตตมนุสาเวสุงปรนิมมิตวสวัตตินังเทวานังสัทธังสุตวาพรหมกายิกาเทวาสัตตมนุสาเวสุงเอตัมภควตาภารานสิยังอิสิปตเนมิคทาเยอนุตตรังธรรมจักกังปวัตติตังอาปฏิวัตติยังสมเนนวาพรหมเนนวาเทเวนวามาเรนวาพรหมุนาวาเกณจิวาโลกัสมินติ
อิติหเตนะคะเน
นะเตนะโมโหเตนะยาวะพรหมโลกาสัตโตอาภูคาจิอายัญจัตสสหัสสีโลกธาตุสังกัมปิสัมปะกัมปิสัมปะเวทิอาปมาโนจะโอลาโลโอภาโสโลเกปาตุระโหสิอติกัมเมวะเทวานังเทวานุภาวังอัตโคภควาอุทานังอุทานเนสิอัญญาสิวัตโพโกนทันโยอัญญาสิวัตโพโกนทันโยติติหิทังอายสมโตโกนทันยาสอัญญาโกนทันโยตเววนามังอาโหสิติ
So now that we have completed the recitation of Dhammacakkappavattanasuttaṁ, let us close the eyes, bring our mind to stay still within the center of ourselves, to recollect all of the good deeds that we have come together and cultivate today, from recite the chanting, the evening chanting, practicing meditation, listening to the Dhamma, reciting the Dhammacakkappavattanasuttaṁ, until all these good deeds and merit have come together, appear as a bright, clear merit sphere at the center of ourselves, so we can allow this merit sphere to expand. All of the merit that we have cultivated, let it slowly formulate into this warm brightness, which we are going to share. Share it with our teachers and master, Dhammacak. For this year, he reached the 81st birthday anniversary. And with his guidance, we are able to understand the complexity and the profoundness of the Dhamma and be able to apply and practice. So we offer this merit to Luang Po as a token of our gratitude. So may Luang Po continue to be the beacon, the guiding light for our pursuit of perfections. May he live long with good health so that we can still have teachers that guide us on our path. So let's picture Luang Po inside at the merit sphere as we share it with him, as we offer it. Until the mind is filled with brightness.สัพเพพุทธาภลปัตตาปัจเจกานันจะยังพลังอรหันตานันจะเตเชนะระคังกันธามิสัพพโสสัพพพุทธานุภาเวนะสัพพธัมมานุภาเวนะสัพพสังฆานุภาเวนะสัทธาโสติปะวันตุเต Let us pay respect with Joktim all together. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhaṃ Bhagavantaṃ Abhivādemi. Buddho Menato, the Buddha is our refuge. Savakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammaṃ Namasami. Dhammo Menato, the Dhamma is our refuge. Supatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Saṅgho Saṅgham Namāmi. Saṅgho Menato, the Saṅgha is our refuge.
Participants, to offer our respect to the teaching monk. Bow, bow, bow.
May all of the good deeds that you will have cultivated bestow upon each and every one of you with happiness, strength, and wisdom. May all your wish be reality. And whenever you practice meditation, may you easily discover and attain the Dhamma insight. And I offer my humble respect to all the senior monks attending here.
I'd like to express our deep gratitude to Venerable Pasura Tantamano for guiding us through and extensively explaining this profound Buddha's first discourse. What makes this teaching so extraordinary is their practical, systematic nature, rather than mere philosophy or religious doctrine. The Noble Eightfold Path, in particular, offers concrete guidance for developing wisdom, ethical conduct, and mental discipline, or in Pali as the Sila, Samadhi, and Panya. So I like to encourage you to reflect on how these teachings can apply to your own experience. And as a gentle reminder, tomorrow evening at 6:30 p.m. Thailand time, we will begin our program as usual with the evening chanting and meditation. Then at 7 p.m. we will conclude our exploration of the Dhammacakkappavattanasuttaṁ and focusing on the final sections that describe the Buddha's declarations of his awakening and the response of the 5 ascetics and the devas. And this will also be our final teaching session before the examination tutoring on the 5th of June. So please join us. For today, may the merit of learning and practicing the Dhamma of the Buddha bring peace to our hearts and all beings. May you all be blessed with wisdom and wealth, good health and happiness. May you all attain the light of Dhammacaya shining within you. Thank you for joining our program. See you tomorrow and good night.